So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, since day one of this new regime, the biggest points of emphasis have been on competition, competing for your spot, and earning your playing time. It doesn't matter if you're Jared Goff or Frank Ragnow. It doesn't matter if you're a first-round pick or an undrafted free agent. You have an opportunity to compete for a roster spot on this team, and if you outperform those around you at the same position, you will play and those players will not. And this is a very good philosophy for the Lions and for a lot of teams to have around the NFL, but it does open the door for surprise cuts each and every year, as every new batch of rookies and even every new batch of undrafted free agents can come along and take a veteran's job. And today we are going to talk about a couple of players that a lot of people expect to make the roster, but at the end of the day very well could be cut come roster cut down day. And today we're going to talk about 4 veterans that may surprisingly get cut from the Detroit Lions and will not play for them during the regular season. So with all that being said and all the intro stuff out of the way, let's get right on into taking a look at 4 veterans that could be surprise cuts by the end of the preseason. Now we're going to start off with Michael Brockers, the interior defensive line. Michael Brockers is a very good leader. He has 2 years left on his contract for the Detroit Lions, but it is not unreasonable to get rid of him right now from a contractual standpoint. If the Lions were to release him after June 1st, it would cost the Detroit Lions upwards of $5.9 million of dead cap and clearing up $3 million. Financially, it doesn't make a ton of sense to get rid of him right now, but I think that his role on the Lions defense isn't quite there anymore, and the reason that they traded for him isn't really the reason that they still need him. He is a good leader, he is a good locker room presence, he is a good voice on the team and a very good voice for the franchise, but he really isn't the same player that he was with the Los Angeles Rams, right? With age and him getting closer to retirement, it really doesn't make sense for him to be on the roster anymore. He is the only player on said roster that is over 30 years old. In a season ago, although he played in 16 of the 17 games for the Detroit Lions, he was only able to total 52 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and 1 sack, despite taking up a majority of snap counts in a lot of games on the interior defensive line. The Lions have addressed interior defensive line and defensive line as a whole over the past 2 drafts, and now with guys like Alim McNeill, Levi Onwuzurike, Josh Paschal, John Penisini, and Demetrius Taylor all having more upside, all being younger, being hungry, and all wanting that spot to take from Michael Brockers, it may make sense for the Lions to move on from their oldest veteran, may make sense for them to move on from their oldest player and really truly get completely new blood in this organization, right? He's a good leader, and I would be surprised if Michael Brockers is cut, because I think it makes more sense next year, as it would free up $10 million and leave us with just $2 million in dead cap. But if Michael Brockers does not perform, or if guys like Demetrius Taylor outperform him in the preseason, I do think there is a scenario where Michael Brockers could end up not being a Detroit Lion in the 2022 season. The second player that we're going to talk about is also a member of a very deep defensive line, and that would be 4th-year player Austin Bryant. Now, Austin Bryant was drafted in the 4th round by the Detroit Lions in the 2018 NFL Draft, or the 2019 NFL Draft, and he has had some injury concerns over his career already. Finished his first 2 seasons on injured reserve, putting up, I believe, just 2 total tackles for loss in just a few games played. However, last year Austin Bryant was officially healthy for the first year of his career, and he played fairly well, totaling over 4.5 sacks last season and multiple quarterback hits. He was a consistent threat on the edge to get home to the quarterbacking position. However, with the injury concerns being very real, with him being injured and ending his season on injury reserve 2 of his 3 seasons, 2 of his 3 full seasons in the NFL, there are concerns of whether or not he can be a long-term pass rusher for the Detroit Lions. The talent has always been there for the Lions, and the talent has always been there for Austin Bryant, but if you're not on the field, it's going to be really hard to maximize that talent. And with, again, like Michael Brockers, all the additions the Detroit Lions have made to the defensive line and to the front seven, his spot may be in jeopardy, right? Aiden Hutchinson, Romeo Okwara, Julian Okwara, and Charles Harris all outproduce him, right? They are all better pass rushers than Austin Bryant. So at the very best, he is going to be the edge rusher 5. And I think they do keep 5 edge rushers. However, if he gets injured again in the preseason, or if, something happens where they feel like they have a better guy in maybe James Houston, or they have a better guy in Josh Pascal for the edge, I think there is an opportunity to get rid of an injury-prone player, get a little bit more healthy players in the building, right? Get a few more reliable guys in the door, and maybe move on from a player that, although I'm 100% rooting for this player because I really like Austin Bryant, I want him to succeed. At the end of the day, the best ability in the NFL is availability, and Austin Bryant just hasn't been available for the Detroit Lions for that many snaps in that many games throughout his NFL career. So I think that there's a possibility that he could be cut, but just like Michael Brockers, I do think the Lions will find a spot for Austin Bryant, who produced 4.5 sacks and 8 quarterback hits for the Lions a season ago. Now, Kalif Raymond is the next player on this list. Kalif Raymond is somebody that totaled over 800 scrimmage yards and 4 total touchdowns for the Lions a season ago as a wide receiver, a partial running back, and a kick/punt returner. He is a versatile player with really good long speed, is a very good deep threat, tracks the ball fairly well, and has good ball skills in the air. But he is 5'9". He is not super big. He is very much undersized for the NFL. And with the very clear idea of improving the wide receiver core this offseason, the Lions wide receivers are very deep at this point. DJ Chark, Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Quintez Cephus, and Josh Reynolds are all players that I think will play over Kalif Raymond, right? DJ Chark, the big name free agent. Jameson Williams, top 12 pick in the NFL draft. Amon-Ra St. Brown, best rookie on the Lions last season, in my opinion. You have Josh Reynolds, the guy with that chemistry that unlocked the deep passing game a season ago with an offense that didn't know how to do that. And of course, Quintez Cephus, who went into the season last year as the wide receiver 2 and put up pretty good numbers. I believe he was on pace for over 800 yards and 7-ish touchdowns before the injury bug got him. That right there is 5 wide receivers deep and 5 guys that are very, very talented and guys that all started time a season ago. The 6th player in that group would be Kalif Raymond. And although the Lions did carry 6 wide receivers a season ago, I think Kalif Raymond's spot very much could be in jeopardy. Khalil Pimpleton, the undrafted rookie free agent from Central Michigan, has been playing very, very well so far throughout mini camps and throughout voluntary workouts. And I think that the Lions kind of have a replacement for everything that Kalif Raymond does well. They have 2 deep threats that run 4.3 speed in DJ Chark and Jameson Williams. They have multiple kick and punt return guys like Godwin Igwebuike, Jameson Williams, and a couple other players that can fill that role just fine. They have their deep threat. They have their kick and punt returner. They have their versatile weapon on offense in Amon-Ra St. Brown, who could take some of those running plays and can actually take direct handoffs from Jared Goff. Kalif Raymond's role simply isn't there. And I think, again, just like the other 3 players, I think there is an opportunity. I think he will make the active roster. But again, if he is outperformed by Khalil Pimpleton, I believe Kalif Raymond could be one of those surprise cuts that a lot of people don't think and a lot of people don't see coming. But at the end of the day, the wide receiver position is incredibly deep for the Detroit Lions, and getting rid of somebody that you can replace their role very easily with the players on your roster, opening up that roster spot for somebody else at the wide receiver position, or maybe even, more help on the linebacking core or whatever you want to add to, it makes a little bit of sense for the Lions if they want to go on that route. And then getting on to the 4th player, this one I think is the least likely of all, but when looking at the additions that they've made this offseason and looking at the depth versus what this player provides, I do think there is an opportunity to get rid of this player and maybe, move on and start fresh at that position, and that would be linebacker Alex Anzalone. Now, Alex Anzalone was a captain last year. He was a leader. He was a voice in the locker room, and he played fairly well, putting up over 78 tackles, 1 sack, 7 passes defended, 1 interception, and playing in 14 of the 17 games for the Detroit Lions. And his contract really isn't that bad. It's a cheap 1-year deal that if the Lions want to keep him for a year, he will be off the books by next year. And if they were to cut him, they would give up nearly $1.75 million in dead cap and free up just $500,000. The cut financially doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but when you look at the linebacking core and the players that they have brought in, I think Alex Anzalone's role from a season ago isn't going to be his role anymore, as I don't think that he is a linebacker that does anything the best on the Lions roster, right? I think Jarrad Davis is a better blitzer. I think that Derek Barnes is a more secure tackler. Malcolm Rodriguez, I would argue, is a better natural and more fluid in coverage. I would say James Houston is more versatile than him. And I would say that Chris Board and even Anthony Pittman provide more special teams experience than what Alex Anzalone can provide. Now, very much like Michael Brockers, I believe that Alex Anzalone will make the roster because of his leadership, because he was a captain a season ago, and because the Lions very clearly wanted to bring this guy back to the organization. However, I wouldn't be surprised if he does make the team if his role was reduced. If Jarrad Davis and Derek Barnes were on the field more than Alex Anzalone, if Malcolm Rodriguez got some coverage snaps alongside Alex Anzalone, and I wouldn't be surprised if his playing time and his snap count was significantly decreased from a season ago, because the depth and the talent on this linebacking court is improved from a year ago. Derek Barnes is getting better. Jarrad Davis is better than what we had a year ago. Chris Board is very much like a replacement for Jalen Reeves-Maybin, and Malcolm Rodriguez was a steal of the draft. I think Alex Anzalone is the odd man out here, and although he's a captain, although he's a leader, and although he's a very good voice in the locker room, I think there is an opportunity to maybe get rid of this veteran who doesn't have long-term security and may not end up being a Lion on week 1. Now, before we end the video, I want to preface, I do not want any of these players to get cut. I am rooting for every single one of these players to succeed, and I am hoping that Austin Bryant comes back and gets 10 sacks. I'm hoping Michael Brockers can have a career resurgence within his second year in Detroit and put up 5 to 6 sacks in the middle of that defensive line. I'm hoping Alex Anzalone develops and becomes a better football player and earns a starting spot and plays like a top linebacker for the Lions. And I am, of course, hoping that Kalif Raymond comes back, is a kick returner, is a wide receiver, is a gadget player, is a deep threat, and they can use him in creative ways. I like all of these players. I'm rooting for Austin Bryant and Kalif Raymond especially, and I really want all of them to make the roster. But I do think we have some talent elsewhere. I do think we have a talented and deep defensive line for Michael Brockers and Austin Bryant. Somebody's going to have to get cut from that defensive line, and right now, those guys seem like the two guys that if there are going to be surprise cuts, that's where those surprise cuts could come from. Kalif Raymond, right? It's just a deep wide receiving core. It has nothing to do with the actual player himself, because I think the player is a very good one. However, I think if they are going to cut down to 5 wide receivers, he again could be the odd man out. And then with Alex Anzalone, again, I think they're going to keep him. I think he's probably going to play and maybe even start some games and be a returning captain. But if you're talking about situations, if you're talking about different packages, I think you could see Alex Anzalone's role reduced in the 2022 season. So with all that being said, that is life for you guys today. Let me know what guys you think could possibly be cut from this roster. What guys do you think that a lot of people are saying, okay, he's pretty much a lock for the roster, might not actually end up playing week 1 for the Detroit Lions? I'd be very curious what you guys think. With all of that being said, that is life for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions.